Hello, I'm Katie Freeman with Freeman Furnishings, and for today's video I'm going to walk you through the process that I use to take a walnut log and burn it and carve it and use epoxy and turn it into a funky little end table. So let's go ahead and get started. From sapling to heirloom, every piece has a story, and it's our job to share that story. About 2 years ago, I got quite a few logs from somebody who was selling them as firewood off of Craigslist, one of them being this walnut log, and I had a plan for them when I got them. I really wanted to create end tables out of them. So to get started, what I did was I used my electric chainsaw and I just made a few cuts in the end. I didn't want to go down too deep and I didn't want to cut out too much, because then I intended to get a fire going and basically let the fire create an organic shape to the legs for the side table. So I used my HomeRite electrolyte to get the fire started. It was nice and safe and really made quick work of it. I let it burn until I liked the shape and didn't think that it was structurally compromised at all by the fire, and then I just used a gallon of water to douse it out. Once the legs were created, I needed to get to work on the rest of the table. So I used my angle grinder and my King Arthur's tools, accessories, the Lancelot, and the Holy Galahad to first level out the table or get it as close to level as possible. And I went back and forth between the Lancelot and the Holy Galahad. The Lancelot is basically a mini chainsaw, and so it's going to remove material much quicker. And the Holy Galahad, even using the coarse one, it will remove material pretty quickly, but not as much. So I use that more as a finesse tool in the end. Then again, I usually mainly went with the Holy Galahad for the carving of the table. Now this piece of walnut log here had some kind of already natural organic shapes that I wanted to maintain, this kind of funky curvature to it, and it really just screamed like it was a little creature in there. I swear this piece has a soul. And so I wanted to accentuate that, not lose that at all. And to do that, I wanted to create basically like a little bit of a headpiece here. And so again, I put the Lancelot on, the little mini chainsaw, to really hollow out the part around the neck. And then I would use the Holy Galahad, the coarse and the medium, to do a little bit more finesse work in there. Once I had, kind of the neck and the bottom part of the table where I wanted it, I just thought it needed a little something else. And so I used the just the Holy Galahad and created these little coves in the back of the table, and I think that really just brought out the character. Then I switched over to my new King Arthur's Merlin 2, which is kind of a miniature grinder, and I used it came with some sanding wheels and basically like a mini Holy Galahad. So I used those to clean up the underside of the table, getting rid of all of the pieces that weren't quite removed when I burned the legs. And then I created some slots. I'm going to make some epoxy butterflies, and what I wanted to go with was this blue and glow in the dark. Now this is Epoxy, so it's their glow in the dark epoxy, and then I'm also using UV epoxy, which is a 1-to-1 mixed ratio. So I pour those in there and give it time to cure. And after it's cured, it will be time to clean it up. Now it was a little hard to get the balance just right so that it would be level and also curved. But after it cured, I used the Merlin 2 again because it's nice and small and can get in there, to remove some of the tape that wouldn't come off after the epoxy cured, and then also to finalize the shape and make everything nice and smooth where the butterflies were at. Now with the next step, I also used the Merlin 2 to kind of do the final finesse and the final shape of the whole table. And I didn't really sand anything though, and that is because I planned on burning it to do kind of the wood grain reveal. I had this vision in my head. I really wanted the main body of the table to be dark, because I intend to make the top of the table brighter and pop against that dark. Now here is where there is a lesson learned. So I thought that the butterflies only needed to cure for 24 hours when they really needed to cure for 48. And then doing the charring around it, I ended up actually turning that blue and glow in the dark Epoxy to black. But in the end, you know what, I think that really ended up working in its favor. But it is definitely a lesson learned for future projects when I do intend to do more of this wood grain reveal approach mixed with an epoxy pop of color. So still need to figure that whole process out to see what needs to come first and how to make that work. But for this project, I still think it worked out right. And then I used my drill and these nylon brushes. Now I bought a couple different ones. I bought an 80 grit coarse one and then a 240 grit fine one, and that's what I'm using here. So the coarse one would remove much more of the burnt part and would give you like definitely a coarser texture and reveal to the grain, and I wanted it to be fine, and so that's why I went with the 240 grit. I really enjoyed this process. It definitely made the finishing process smoother and just so much more fun. And when you get a close-up look of the table, you can see these fine little marks from the nylon brush, and I think it's just such a cool texture effect. Alright, so like I said, I wanted to create a pop of color on the top of the table, so I mixed up some more epoxy. This time I'm using the UV Epoxy, which is a 1:1 ratio, and also liquid plastic 2:1 mix ratio, and I mixed them together. This will make a faster cure time, and that's why I mixed them together, but also get that hard glass-like finish. So I only put tape around the very top of the top, and there were a bunch of cracks, as you saw as I was pouring it, and this was intentional. I did not mean for the epoxy to stay just like as a solid mass on the top. I wanted it to flow naturally down the piece, very organic. Wherever it went is where it went, and so I knew much would not stay on the top, but it would still leave that red color. It's a metallic red pigment that I had mixed in with the Epoxy. As you can see here, it still has that luster to it, and I think it's just such a cool effect. I'm really super excited with how this part turned out. And then I'm finishing it with just some Howard's feed-in wax. It doesn't really need anything else on it. That is a good enough protection, and it gives it just a nice warm feel and look. And I have decided to name this the zombie table, because with the black bottom and the red top, especially with it dripping down, I don't know, something to me just screams brain eater, and it's just fun and funky. I'm really excited with how this piece turned out. So if you enjoyed today's video, please go ahead and hit subscribe, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below with what you think about this project. And also check out my Patreon page if you would like to help join me in making more of these really cool projects in the future. I appreciate you watching, and I will catch you next time.